Welcome, everybody, to the Jump Music Initiative podcast, another episode. And, Maddie, let me turn things over to you to introduce our guest.
Perfect. So today we have Jenn Beaupre. So Jenn Beaupre is a singer, songwriter, pianist, and has been voice coaching for the past 15 to 20 years. She's competed on Canadian Idol, performed at the 2010 Vancouver Olympics. She has opened for the Moscow Ballet, as well as picking up notice locally in 2003 when she won the Most Promising Young Artist Award during the Calgary Stampede's annual talent search. And you might have seen her recently in her online Quarantine series. So welcome, Jenn.
Welcome, Jenn.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you. I love your background. I think it's so great. Perfect. Can we just start off by maybe having you give us a bit of an overview of what you do specifically pertaining to the vocal coaching and vocal teaching? What does that look like for students? What is a vocal coach?
Well, that's such a loaded question, even though it seems really simple. I think that there's sort of two different things I will say that are part of my job as a coach. One is more teaching singing and one is more coaching singing. When I get beautiful artists in like Maddie, it's definitely more of a coach, which means that someone's coming to me with their artistry, with either they're a budding songwriter or already a songwriter. They already know how to sing and they're trying to get focus and to get specifics ironed out. Mm-hmm. Vocal teaching is people, doesn't just mean they're little kids. Some adults want teachers too, where you're doing more of here's how to sing. Here are the basics. Here's how to pitch match. Here's how to sing a song. This is what a chorus is. And both of those things bring me great joy. And I think that I wouldn't be willing to part with either.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. That makes sense. And do you find that people are like, I think that maybe people are interested in taking vocal lessons, but they might be intimidated as to their skill level or anything like that. How do you encourage people to get started?
Well, I think that the way I feel about singing is that it is so joyful and so healthy for anybody. Mm-hmm. So anybody who has a little baby voice that says it might be fun for them, I guarantee it will be. I mean, I don't have to prove that to either of you. It's one of my biggest joys. So if anybody wants to get started, my first advice would be to start. You can't start without starting. So coming to see someone like me is a total bonus. If it's something that you can budget for and make time for, 100%, I'll hold your hand, and I really love to do that. But if you're at home and you want to sing, sing. And what I tell a lot of my students, whether they're more advanced or not, is steal everything you can from singers you love, from artists you love. Listen and steal carefully and thoroughly from the singers you love. That's the most effective way to become the kind of singer that you love.
Steal carefully. I like how you said that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't mean it because I don't think you should steal fully. I mean it because I think a lot of people, as a coach, I hear a lot of people do a lot of weird habits. And I sometimes say aloud or think to myself, where did you get that? And I eventually put together, they heard singer X do this. They interpreted it, didn't listen very carefully, and came out with Y. Mm-hmm. So when I say steal carefully, I mean make sure that you're actually stealing what you're hearing and love.
Right. Okay. I getcha. I wanted to ask how you got into vocal coaching in the first place.
After my first 10 years of pursuing artistry, I was bartending and serving like many actors, singers, creatives do. And I was starting to really hate it. I was getting towards my mid-20s. And also, for what it's worth, I've never had alcohol, even till now. I'm 37. It's not a religious thing. It's just sort of one of those things. So I was working in bars, having never wanted to mess with alcohol. So it was like an added layer of, I already don't really want this lifestyle. Now I'm working in it. So my mom said, well, maybe you need to teach singing. And I was like, well, I don't have a post-secondary education in music. Who will take me seriously. And who's to say I even know how to do it? And, you know, we kind of went back and forth like that for a couple of weeks. But finally, as many people's serving career ends, a disaster of spraying vodka happened. And I kind of just put an ad up on Kijiji and said, like, I don't know, I was on Canadian Idol, like, maybe you want to learn from me. Here's my videos.
Wow.
And I booked immediately in a student, and I lived in an apartment downtown, and my first student came in, and she was a really cool lady. And I moved my piano into my shoe closet by the front door. And this lady came in and she sat in my shoe closet with me. And we both pretended we weren't in my shoe closet. And I said, what do you want to sing? And she said, well, my sister's getting married and I want to sing At Last. And I was like, At Last, hey? You're a newbie, wow. Okay. So we dove in, and within minutes, I was like, I love this. This is so cool, because immediately my brain went, oh, your tongue's a little bit high in the back and you're making a little bit of a weird shape and you're kind of pushing fun. And the stuff that was coming out of my mouth, I was like, oh shit, I know. Oh, sorry. I don't know if I can swear.
All good. All good.
I was like, oh man, I know stuff. My body knows stuff. My ear knows stuff. And then I just wanted more people. I wanted to tell more people how to make the sound that's in their body get on the outside. Mm-hmm. I loved it immediately.
It's wonderful that you could articulate how she can improve and what she can do. And I think, to me, just thinking about vocal lessons and vocal coaching, that would be the hardest part, because if I'm teaching bass or if I'm teaching guitar, I can physically show somebody on the instrument the technique and how to do it, you know, but really, you know, when it comes to vocals, all of it is kind of, you know, abstract.
It's abstract. Yeah. I had a student once tell me that a very frustrated coach she had in her past stuck her hand in her mouth and pushed her tongue down. And I was like, inappropriate, but I hear that, girl. Like, sometimes you're like, oh my God, I just want to. Yeah. But yeah. But you do become. That must be a hard part. It is, but a lot of us performers, all three of us here, anybody who likes being on stage and storytelling, we're good talkers, and you eventually become a wizard of saying the same thing 11 different ways. Mm-hmm. Which you must be able to do, right? People are different learners. They learn what I've even done for some people who are more visual, which is like, how are you going to teach vocals visual? But I'll record a small passage from a singer. I will load it into Melodyne or auto-tune, right? That's the name for those of you who don't know what Melodyne is. Oh. And I will physically say to them, you're singing this note. You need to sing this note. Oh, that far off. That far off. Sometimes I'll take a singer and make them sing, no matter how crazy it might be, and I'll Melodyne the crap out of it and send them home to learn from themselves.
Interesting.
Right? I've thought of every abstract thing I can to help people find new ways to discover. Yeah.
So when you're doing that, and you enter it into auto-tune or something, are you like on a computer and you can see a waveform, or is it's just an audio thing?
Yeah. When they're sitting beside me pre-COVID, they're able to see. Have you never used Melodyne?
Actually, just in the studio, but you know, nothing where I've been manning it or personally
awesome.
working.
Yeah, I
it.
mean, God, that's awesome. That speaks loudly about you. Yes. Yeah, no, it's a visual. Melodyne takes whatever a singer sings and plots it on a chart, essentially. So every note you sing is plotted on a chart where you can follow it over and say, oh, that's a B. Oh, but I wanted an E. Ooh.
I see.
So it's a visual for people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Or even for more advanced singers, I can say, okay, you're always scooping when you do a descending run or whatever. You're always scooping. No, I'm not. Well, I'm going to record you. I'm going to slow you down so that you have no choice to hear it. I'm going to load it into Melodyne so you can see that scoop line every time.
Oh, wow. I bet you that visual really helps a lot of people. That's very smart.
For people who are more visual learners, they're like, oh, some people are like, what is this squiggle? It just, that's what I'm saying is you got to speak a million languages.
Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to ask, how important is it for vocalists to also learn the piano or any other instrument that they can?
It depends what you want out of it. If you're looking to have a career in music, I'd say it's 11 out of 10 important to play an instrument. Being a singer isn't really a thing anymore. In my opinion, I'd be happy to have someone dispute me on that, but you can't really just be a singer, you know, especially in this age where there's so much competition, there's so much technology. You can learn an instrument on YouTube if you really want to. So there's kind of no excuse. Even if you're the vocalist that ever vocaled, I mean, you can for sure find a band or an instrumentalist who always wants to play with you, but financially, even, right? To play small gigs, to get yourself going, to always require someone is kind of not awesome. And also the understanding of music in general, whether you're going to go to school or you're going to be self-taught like myself, I do think that it ups your musicality game a lot. And I think having high musicality makes you a very listenable, endearing artist.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of being self-taught, you grew up in Drumheller, is that correct? Drumheller, Alberta. That's very cool. I think that it must have been there must have been interesting challenges growing up in a small town when you want to be a vocalist or a musician. What was it like growing up there and pursuing music there, or what was your history there?
I have to be honest. I'm going to say that I found this podcast and binged a bunch of episodes recently. And I want to say that growing up in a small town in the 90s was not super helpful for pursuing a music career. I see young artists like Kate Stevens, and I'm like, girl, yes. She has got her hands in everything, her brain in everything. And in a small town in the 90s, I mean, I found a classical vocal coach, you know, lovely, beautiful singer, beautiful lady. There was no pop voice lessons. There was no accessibility to things like Stampede Youth Talent. You know, a lot of stuff in a small town isn't there. So what it did offer me was East Cooley Folk Festival. What it did offer me is lots of beautiful folk musicians who I learned from and was able to come up beside. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's really helpful from a small town when you want to pursue.
Well, and especially, you know, back in those days when YouTube and you know, the way we use the internet was obviously totally different. So, you know, it was, I'm sure things are a little bit different these days, depending on where you're at. But I imagine being a part of a scene and that sort of thing is quite challenging. Yeah, so after Drumheller, where did you go to Calgary directly, or what did you do after that?
When I won Stampede Youth Talent, I think the year after the honorable mention or whatever, I went to nationals because there was a national competition where all the winners meet in one city. And I met a boy from Quebec. So he was in the band that won from the Quebec version. So we kind of, even though he only spoke French and I only spoke English, we kind of fell in like or love or whatever you do when you're 20. And I tootled out to Quebec for a bit. So we wrote music and we played a bit in Quebec. And after that ended, I came back home. I spent a little run in Vancouver. With Canadian Idol, I was in Toronto for a few months. And then I settled in Calgary.
Wow.
I see. And can you tell us a little bit about your Canadian Idol experience? What did you learn from it? And it must have been a intimidating thing to be a part of it. I imagine that it was. Can you just tell us about your experience, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I think I often, especially in recent times, I really wish that I could have known more before participating in a platform like that, because again, I was coming from mostly small town Alberta. And I will say too, those shows have really grown and shifted, but I definitely, one of the main songs I chose to sing was Cheek to Cheek. Do you know that song, Red?
Yeah, I'm
You
familiar.
know it, but do you know it?
No, I don't know the song.
Exactly. Yeah. So I chose a jazz song, which people after I got off the show were like, what, why did you do that? But for me, I was like, cause it's such a great song and Eva Cassidy does a great version. And it didn't really occur to me to worry about what was popular, which has kind of been a weird thing across my career. I've always been like, but this cool vocal thing or this cool whatever. So the Canadian Idol experience was shape-shifting. It grew me probably very quickly, but it did provide me with one of the most valuable vocal tips that I provide to my students. When I first met with the vocal coach, whose name is Bird, she worked with all the American Idols. She, I think, sometimes works on The Voice. Very beautiful woman, very beautiful singer. And she said to me when she first met me, pleased to meet you, go ahead and sing for me. So I think I sang for her What a Wonderful World. That was the first one I sang for her. And I was like, I see trees are green, red roses too. Whatever I did back there. And she let me finish and she said, oh, baby, you've got a great voice. I don't really have a lot to teach you. That's really great. And I was like, yes. And then she said, but if you're going to go on national TV and do that, I feel for you. And I was like, I just cried through the rest of the session because and she said, and then she said, this is the most important thing. Maybe just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that's something I like to pass on to students all the time, especially really prolific vocalists, even if it's so juicy and it's so wonderful, the thing that they're doing. Sometimes it's too much, sometimes, right? So that's what I learned on Canadian Idol was, I learned a little bit about TV, which is that they'll say to you, oh, awesome, bro, what city are you from? This is so cool, you're so great. By the way, when the cameras roll, we might talk to you a little differently. And then they do. Oh, you're weird. We don't know if Canada's ready for you. What? That's not what you said to me yesterday.
Oh, interesting.
But that's their job. And that's how it goes.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy experience. I wanted to ask a little bit more about your experience teaching music and what it's been like specifically to move from teaching in person to teaching virtually with COVID-19.
Oh man. I've had online students for 6 or 7 years. Oh, wow. A couple. Moving 28 people online was daunting for a minute or two. Not really for me. That's a lie. Mostly daunting for them because I've got all age groups, people who aren't technologically savvy. Also, some people come to me for a million reasons. People come like you who have a very specific goal. People come to me because singing's fun and it's on their bucket list and they can afford it. So for people who come to basically sing with me and jam with me and do 4 different songs every session, it was a really difficult pivot for them. And I didn't know if some of them would even want to hang on because suddenly, I don't know if everybody understands the limitations of using an online platform. You can no longer sing to my piano, right? Well, you guys know that because there's a lag. So students who really love when I play a song and they can jam along to it, that's immediately off the table. So for some people, figuring out the new rhythm of how this was going to go was really, everybody rose to the challenge. I'll be honest, I think I made 5 people learn piano, which was never part of their goal, never part of their intention, but kind of what you asked in the beginning, how important do you think is it to learn an instrument? Well, it became very important for people to be, I can send people tracks and there's karaoke stuff and there's lots of ways to go around this. But I felt for a lot of people, they were ready and would benefit from having an instrument under their fingers. So
it's a really good point, especially for these days, Yeah, really good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. So it was challenging, but I was just very grateful to be able to stay connected with the people who are my people, regardless of the world being on fire, literally now. and also still having part of my income is something that, to those people, I will remain grateful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I can totally sympathize with those feelings, and you know, as being an artist and a musician and having some of, you know, our income taken away from us and having to adjust, it takes some solace in the fact that we're all navigating this together. But it has been a wonderful thing to see people come out and support us in different ways, and I've been very touched by that too. So yeah, it's very encouraging.
It is encouraging. I didn't even really know if people's head would be in a place where they could sit and focus on singing, because for some people it's not like they're trying to make a career, right? But those people really, I think, still wanted to show up for themselves too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which was really cool to watch, because you also don't know how important this is for some people, right? You're like, I don't know. In the beginning, I thought, geez, I wonder if people are going to want to keep doing this, but I didn't lose one, not one.
Wow. That's amazing. That's really good. That's a lot.
Yes. And I got new people because of the quarantines. I now have a student in Florida, New York, Ontario. Wow. It's really cool.
Oh yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about the quarantines? Where did you get the idea, and what was your response like for that?
It was really neat. When quarantine sort of, even before it started happening, and when it started to become clear that it was going to be serious, I called up one of my friends and he said, hello. And I said, I'm broke, but I'm happy. Like, I was like, I'm sitting on my couch. And he's like, oh, bro, you should put that on the gram. And I was like, oh, I can't put like one line. I'd have to do like a whole thing. And he was like, well, you know, you probably have a little bit of time on your hands now. Which I actually didn't, because I moved all my clients online. I was busy as heck, but
yeah.
After I posted the first one, it got like a substantial amount of hits very quickly. So I worked really hard to rhyme things and make hopefully funny little moments for people. It was fun.
Yeah, I'll bet. And all of a sudden you had a lot on your plate, I guess.
Yeah, it was weird. It was really
kept
weird.
you busy.
It was weird.
Can you share with our listeners some of your vocal idols, or some of your favorite vocalists, or people that they should listen to?
Well, somebody that I think is such a beautiful interpreter of music, and I don't know if this again will be relevant for youth, because I think that's who you guys are targeting, right? Youth.
Yes.
I think an interesting vocalist, if you can use your imagination, is Eva Cassidy. And the reason I say that is she's not her interpretation of classics and her interpretation in general is something that, even if you don't want to interpret music that way, it's such a great example of how to take a song and do what you're going to do with it. You know, that is your own artistry, but that is so palatable and so, for lack of a better word, respectful to the original song. Because I do think covering songs is super valuable. Because of shows like The Voice and American Idol, the general public wants to hear, but what does so-and-so sound like doing so-and-so? So I think being a really good cover artist, Eva Cassidy is a really neat artist who was kind of doing that before it was a thing. I mean, people have always been covering music, but she really made it work. People really love her covers. I think I really love big vocalists. I really love listening to the Whitneys and the Arethas, but I don't know that that's as relevant today, because vocalists like Billie Eilish, who are pretty brilliant, it's not about big brassy sounds right now. Even your artists today, like Ariana Grande, who do have a really big, agile, juicy, powerful voice, aren't really using it like that right now. Rock, like, what genre do you consider your music, Matt?
I would say like maybe alternative rock.
Right? So that's one genre where you still have full permission to just like be shiny and dig right into stuff. But pop music right now, I don't think big shiny vocals. I mean, people will always love the Kelly Clarksons. I love Lady Gaga. I think she's she's brilliant for so many reasons. But those big, when I show young students, maybe say they're 13 or 12 or something, and I say, oh, check out this song. They're like, oh, I don't like the sound of this. What is this? I'm like, well, it's Lady Gaga, dude. But the younger ears are more into subtle, subdued vocals, which are just as complicated, which have just as many subtleties, but they're different kind of hard, different kind of complicated. So I'm not answering your question. I'm talking in a big circle, sorry.
No, but it's all relevant, and I think it's important for people to hear that too. And it's a really good point, because the vocal styles have changed over the years. If you think, pop music or just music in general, from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, it's always changing. And there's always trends in, you hear the trends in vocals on a grander scale, actually, than you do in maybe other instruments. But things have changed in music, and they will continue to change.
When I first started, I literally saw it usher in when kids would come in and be like, I can't buy so stage. And I was like, what? I kind of yelled at the first kid, and then the next one came in. I was like, how do these kids both be doing the same weird? And then, so I realized, man, I have to really listen to what they're listening to, because for me to scold them or correct them when that is what is happening is a disservice, right? So I have to learn, okay, people are loving the sound of this, even if my ear from the 90s is like, that's not even how you say the word. That's 3 vowels in the place of 1 vowel. I don't really. If it sounds good to people, I have to learn how to teach it and teach it authentically and find some appreciation for it too. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. Good point.
I just wanted to ask, what would be your advice to young artists? Maybe they're just starting out as a singer-songwriter, or they want to start singing, or maybe they want to become a vocal coach. What would be your advice to young people just starting out in the industry? Drink
in vocals. Study vocals the way you would study anything that A, interests you, and B, that you want to be an expert on. I was just telling a dad who brought me his daughter, and he's like, I want her to be a star. But she doesn't, like, this little girl actually has a lot of ability, but she's like, she could kind of take it or leave it, but she's got a lot of ability. And he's like, well, what did you do when you were her age? And I was like, I'll be honest with you. I was sitting in my bedroom listening to a Mariah Carey song and a song from The Little Mermaid on repeat for 6 hours. And he's like, oh, she doesn't do that. I'm like, well, maybe she'll grow into it. But to me, if you're really, really want to be a voice coach, particularly a voice coach, I don't think every singer needs to listen to The Little Mermaid for 6 hours. But I think if you want to be a voice coach, I think that you have to become fascinated with vibrato, right? Fast, slow, deep. You have to become fascinated with the way this singer phrases versus this singer. This person breathes when they're not even out of air because it shows emotion when they make that sound into the mic, And this person uses their head voice on purpose, even when their mixed voice is available, because it shows so much emotion. How does it feel to hollow my voice out like that? Exactly on the words she hollows it out on, right? Study it and drink it in. And remember that, I say this a lot too, singing is 51% listening and 49% making noise. Hear everything. Hear it twice. Hear it so that you can sing it in your head before you even put it out loud. Listening is how you steal effectively.
Mm-hmm.
That's
well
awesome.
said, Jenn. Thank you. What's next for you? What's on your plate? What's coming up?
To be honest, COVID has really accelerated looking at what I want from my career. And looking, I don't know how either of you are both in very different places in your career. I am not enamored with Spotify algorithms and figuring out how to market the way that you kind of need to be enamored. The way that I just described how enamored I am with the human voice, I am not that enamored with marketing music.
Oh man.
So for me, all I ever want to be is on stage. And also another thing that I think young artists would want to think about is actually how important is making money to them. And I don't mean that's because there's only one way to make money or all artists have to be broke. I don't mean any of that. But for me, making money was a priority of mine at a very young age, which really shaped my path, It pulled me towards playing corporate events a lot more than building my artistry. So I'll answer your question as quickly as I can and say this. I've had 3 things going for a long time, 3 things that I've been working on, which is voice coaching, my coaching practice, being an artist and putting out original music that feels authentic to me, and 3, playing corporate events, which some musicians kind of frown at because you're playing often cover music and because often it's not like a festival feel. But the money I've made in the corporate industry has funded my artistry for years. So what I was realizing before COVID and what has really accelerated in this last 6 months is that I'm not sure my artistic pursuits, without me really even choosing it, I'm realizing that book is kind of slowly closing. I'll always record songs. And this is something that some days I can say without tears in my eyes, and some days I'm like, I can't. Ugh. But I think making music, if you make music, you make music. If you're a singer, you sing. If you're a recording artist, you record. But again, that marketing stuff, it's just not, it doesn't bring me joy. It doesn't fill my cup at all. So I think that for me, coaching is going to ramp up a lot. The offerings, my coaching offerings, I really want to ramp up. I was really starting to build my corporate event business before COVID. I'm not sure what budgets will be. I'm not sure who will have money to have live music at their events, and or when the government will decide that it's not poisonous to sing in public. Mm-hmm. So coaching is obviously my jam. What are you doing? Am I allowed to ask you that?
Yes, of course. And they just changed the rules yesterday, Jen. I don't know if you heard that or not. AHS changed the guidelines. So that will, affect, some events and stuff like that. So look back into that, I think, and then maybe, things are changing again. So I haven't been gigging much, but I have done a couple of things, outdoor stuff. But now that it's getting cold, that's not really an option. But as of yesterday, things are different. So I'm going to have to reevaluate what I can do and see what's available. I don't mind creating shows for myself, booking a hall, booking a venue, putting on a show, selling tickets. But I'm sure you can relate to this. The absolute exhaustion of these past months, I really just couldn't find it in me to organize an outdoor show. If someone booked me, I would happily go play a show, which is sounds really lazy of me. No. It's just, and that's what happened with me too. These were offers. I didn't take it upon myself to do it because it is daunting a little bit at the end of the season, and it's been rough, of course. So I hear you.
Yeah. So my future looks like taking all the joy I feel from coaching and ramping it up, maybe offering some masterclasses, some workshops, some retreats, some small group settings, and pursuing my artistry, but in a really different capacity, more realizing how to do that for me again, and watch people like you figure out how to get 3,000 million Spotify spins in a day, because I don't know how. And I tip my hat to those of you who are like Kate Stevens. As I was listening to her podcast with you guys, she's into it. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I loved it. Because I know a lot of artists like her that are like, I found this glitch in the matrix and I figured out this thing, and I know you can post it from here. And if you get people to pre-save, I'm so tired. I mean, I started when I was burning CDs and mailing it to Sony and hoping the front desk person would open it.
Yeah, it's certain, things have certainly changed, and that enthusiasm is nice to see in young artists. But figuring it all out, that is why we're asking you. And it's really why we're all here for this podcast. And, your insight has been really appreciated. And you said one thing that I'll always remember, and I might steal from you because I thought it was extremely wise, was your answer about how important is money to you. Because I just thought that was a brilliant answer, you know, because it covers the whole thing from being an artist to a working musician to, you know, it's okay if your priority is money as an artist or a performer or anything. Like, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But, you know, you make different decisions based on that. And that was wonderful, wonderful insight. And I hope that our listeners take that to heart, because I thought that was a great answer. Thank you, Jenn.
Thanks for liking it, because I know it's like a kind of a dirty thing, especially as a young artist. You're like, I don't care. I don't care if I make money. I don't care. I just want to have this career. Yeah, until you care, because eventually you will. I had a student, really, really ridiculously beautiful vocalist with really modern stylings. And I was like, do you want to be a musician? And she was like, I think so. Like, that's what you're going to pursue. I don't know. I think so. I said, how entrepreneurial are you? Well, what does that mean? I said, are you willing to get up every day and make phone calls, hustle, grind, call people, book things, try things, shake people down for opportunities? And she was like, no, that's not me. And I said, don't do this. Mm-hmm. Don't do this. And that might sound really like, why would you discourage your student? And she actually was like, I think I should be a lawyer like my mom and keep music for fun. And I was like, 100%, if you don't want to get up and do that grind, then yeah, that's not the life for you. And that's okay. God, why would that be the life for everyone?
You're right. It can't be. It can't be. And music has to be fun for, you know, that's the wonderful thing about music is it runs the gamut of everything. Everybody gets something different out of it, right? What you're saying is totally correct.
Yeah. So, and it's also okay to have enough hustle in you to put some time in and then decide, or it's okay to have minimal hustle and get a really great break. Even better. But I think being really realistic about not just the music, because we all love making the music. We could talk for hours about how much we all love being on stage or writing songs or recording them. We're all here for that. That's why anybody is drawn to this industry. But the music business, gotta hustle, gotta work really hard. So decide, because some people actually can be happy not wanting big money or medium money. You know, some people are happy living with less. I wanted stuff. I wanted to be able to have vacations and do stuff. So I prioritized things that were more money-making things than fan-building things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you commented on that. I think it's important for our listeners to hear that. Maddie, do you have any more questions for Jenn?
No, I don't. Do you, Jory?
No, I don't. I think it's a really good place to maybe leave it for today, because I think it gives our listeners a lot to think about. And I think you've given us some wonderful insight, Jenn. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you. And lastly, I just want to say that after perusing a bunch of podcast episodes, you guys, first of all, Maddie, you're a genius, because exposing yourself to these people and soaking in what these people have to say, I can't imagine what your career looks like and what your trajectory looks like. You guys have located every person that I could think of that has really important insight. So you're a genius for that. But anybody who's listening to this, holy crap, have these people ever assembled a wonderful cast and crew to tell you things that matter? So thank you guys. I wish when we were younger, Jory, we had what this podcast is. It's unbelievable who you've assembled and what you've asked them to provide.
Yeah, thanks. You know, I wish we had something like that too, but it's wonderful that we can, you know, take those experiences and pass them forward. So.
100%. So bravo to both of you.
And
thanks so much, Jenn.
Lastly, just quickly, I wanted to let the viewers know where they could find your music and where they can, if they wanted to take vocal lessons from you, where can they find you?
You can, if you're looking for vocal lesson information type stuff, www.jennbeaupre.com. That is JENNBEAUPRE.com. For my newer my new artist name is Rozette, ROZETTE.ca, or Spotify, Instagram, Apple, all the places.
Thanks.
And we'll make sure to put the links as well when we post the episode. Jenn, thanks again.
Thanks a ton, guys.
Yeah. Well,
so much,
take care. We'll check in with you soon and hopefully do this again.
Yeah, take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.